Welcome to Embrace Joy, where we are walking the road to restoration. My name is Joy LaPiccolo. I am a certified life coach with a background working with trauma survivors, and I am joined with a very special guest today, Anne Marie Thieves. Anne Marie, welcome to our podcast. Anne Marie Thrives. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, well, welcome.
I did.
Well, today we're going to be talking a little bit about boundaries as it comes to the holidays. So, Thanksgiving is just around the corner, and that starts the season of get togethers with friends and family. And sometimes for people who have experienced trauma, we have betrayal, and that is a challenge for those of us. So, Anne Marie, I would just appreciate you to share a little bit about your background and your experience and how the betrayals in your life, how you have overcome them, and some advice that you have for some of the women.
Okay. Um, well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be able to talk about this really sensitive issue because a lot of people have experienced trauma, whether it's physical, spiritual, emotional. And I think the dynamics of the holiday just kind of puts people on edge to begin with. As women, we have, we wear many hats, and it's sometimes it's difficult to keep switching the hats as we're moving along in life. Um, and so when things happen that were not, that have kind of scarred us, those scars start to itch around this time. You may have not noticed the scar the whole year, but the holidays are coming. So now it's like, oh, I remember that. And so I think for me, I have a lot of happy holiday memories and some not so happy. And so I I mean, there were times where people were literally having fist fights at a couple of the gatherings that we have gone to, because emotions just got so escalated and people didn't know how to manage those emotions. And so I wrote a book last year called 31 Days to a Stable Christmas. And in there, I have like a chapter a day. They're small. But I just kind of go through how not to be stressful during this season. Some of it is planning ahead. Some of it is really setting boundaries that you're comfortable with and that other people are comfortable with. Um, and then just kind of removing yourself however that you can. Um, it, Maybe you can't do a full removal because it's, your spouse or your children or something that's in the way, but you can do partial removals where you just kind of just put up a curtain, if you will, where you can open and close that curtain and come back and forth, just knowing that this is going to happen, but you're not going to blow up about it. You are going to just handle it in a manner that's not going, because it may just be you and that other person, or you and two other people, and you've got 20 people in the room. So as not to affect their holiday, you're going to choose to handle it in a way that's not going to make things, just kind of go overboard for everyone involved. Um, and sometimes I have had that conversation with people ahead of time before the actual event. Love for you to come, but we're not going to talk about these things at the table. Just because everybody's here, this isn't the time for you to, you know, stand on your soapbox to try to make your point to see how many people are going to agree with you and how many are not. It's not an election where we're going to vote as to whether you're right or wrong. So if that's your intention for coming, then I'd love to meet with you for coffee and talk about it, but we're not going to bring it to the festival table, if you will. And so I've dealt with it that way too. And I've also had people call me and, tell me I'm not coming because XYZ. Okay. And it's their choice whether they want to come or not. But, just creating those boundaries as we go along, because if we continue to let people, um, use us as a mat or use our time together as a way to, kind of air out things, then it's going to continue to happen. But if these people know and understand that you are setting these parameters and you're only going to go so far, we're not going to go there at all, then I think it just kind of helps the situation, and it lets them know that, you know, you're not going to go there, ahead of time, as opposed to, like a child testing you to see how far you'll go. If you take an inch, they'll give you a mile, kind of thing. And so we're not going to give them even that inch, um, because if we continue to do so on a regular basis, it's just going to continue to happen. Um, and I always flip this saying, but if it happens one time, shame on you. If it happens a second time, shame on me. I did say it right. And then if it happens a third time, both of you are in trouble. But just to kind of understand where these people are, some of them are really hurting. They're really hurting inside, and they haven't acquired, practiced, or understand the scriptures on forgiveness, or the meaning of forgiveness, how to truly forgive, and that not having that in their tool shed, you know, um, g- causes a lot of problems, because when there is underlying things that have not been dealt with, and they have not forgiven, maybe they need to forgive themselves, maybe they need to forgive other people, because Jesus said, "Who among you hasn't sinned, cast the first stone." Well, none of us have, right? So none of us has the right to cast that stone, but we do have the right to be able to, like it says, bring it to that brother. If that brother doesn't listen, then come in with somebody else. And if they really don't listen, then there's no reason to let them in until they've fixed it, you know, because it puts other people in danger. And I don't, when things are flying across the table, meaning words, it could be just as toxic as and hurtful as other things that fly that can kill us, right? We just don't look at it that way because they're emotions or they're whatever, but something inside of us gets deeply hurt when those type of things happen. And if we don't deal with them, then that wound is never going to close. And that could lead to sepsis and eventually death, right? So you can look at that spiritually, or physically. Those things happen. So, putting ourselves in a position to just kind of build, I don't want to say walls, because walls has sometimes has a negative connotation, but just building a shelter around you so that you're not affected by these things and these people. Um, and then I talk about making lists and preparing ourselves to save us from ourselves. Because we can just go crazy holiday time, and just, again, with the hats wearing, some of you have mommy hats, some of you have husband hats, or you're always responsible for cooking, so you're the host, you're the cook, all of these things going on. And for me, lists are very helpful. And the neat thing about a list is, like, for instance, a couple of years ago, one of my really good friends, I've been friends with her for over 25 years. We met at church, and she was a young mom, and she passed away. And so it was really cool because right before, like a couple of months before she passed, she lives, a few hours away from me, lived. Um, and we were going to a wedding, and we were like right around the corner. So we spent some time with them. And then before I left, we ended up praying. And in the prayer, it was just really neat. It was almost like, I can't explain it, but it was almost like, when Jesus on the cross handed over Mary to John, it was kind of like she said this little something about me and her mom. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." Didn't even think anything about it until a few months later when she passed, and I was part of that whole passing with her mom and her sister calling and us praying together and all this stuff. So we spent we spent the 4th of July, we did a memorial for her. I think it was the 2nd of July, but fireworks were going on. And then we spent Thanksgiving, and I think even Christmas with them that year. But had, I make the same thing every year pretty much. So I made my list of the menu, and I sent it to them because they asked me to cook. And so the other day, this year, because of family dynamics and health reasons, um, I was stressing out a little bit about, so I had to be my own coach to myself, you know. I was like, wait a minute. Um, do I want to eat this? Do I want it? So I remembered that I had my list, right? So I had put it in my notes. So I searched for Thanksgiving and I found the menu. And then when I found that led to I found the menu. These are the things I'm gonna make. And then from that, I copied that list and I went through each thing that was on the menu and I put a few spaces in and then I started putting what I needed to make that. So then that became my grocery list. And then from there I made a third document based on that and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start cooking this at this time because after you've done something for a while, you just kind of learn from your mistakes that, the turkey has to go in by a certain time if you want everything ready by the next time. Now I make the pies a few days before or a day before. So I've learned all these things throughout the years that are helping me to make my third list as to, you know, there's nobody to hold a schedule for here, where it's just us, so to speak. And so there's not 20 people coming over, but still we like to eat at a certain time. Then we watch movies and then later we, maybe have a snack and then we have treats and, the pies and things like that. So that just really calmed me down and took a lot of the stressors out. And I'm big on positive thinking and positive speech so that situations go well. And my husband was like, "Man, we're going out on a Saturday like before. This was not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before." And he's like, "It's going to be crazy out there." And I'm like, "No, it's not. We're going to go in, we're going to go out, we're going to get what we need and we're going to come home." And he was like, he's learned, and he was like, "Okay, I received that." And that's exactly what happened. He got his cart, I got my cart, and I'm like, "You go here, I'll go there. This is what I need from over here. This is what I'm gonna get for," and it was like we were done in no time and came home.
Mm.
And now all the things are laying out and now they're going to start getting cooked. So there's ways to do things, not and you could take that Thanksgiving menu and translate it into other areas of life where you sit there and you ponder on what are you going to get done this month, this week, today, in the next few minutes. You could break it down as much as you want to make sure that that things turn out well. Are they going to be perfect? No. Sometimes the pie burns, sometimes the cranberry doesn't have enough sugar, whatever, and that's part of life, but to learn so that, there's that. My dad used to, towards the end of his days, he was a truck driver most of his life, but he also, because we're from Italy, when you became a truck driver, you also had to have some mechanical history because if you broke down, there was no AAA coming to get you in the mountains of Italy. So he had to kind of know, is it this or is it that? And towards the end, when he retired from driving, he took a job in preventative maintenance. And one day, I was blessed to have him here for some time before he passed away. So we took care of him, and the things that came out were so precious and scary sometimes because of the illness that he had. But it was such a blessed time, even with everything that we were going through. And one day, I just realized that, he's been doing preventative maintenance all his life, and he's taught me to do that. And I never looked at it that way, So I kind of grabbed that from him. And so now I try to, preventive maintenance in my kitchen, in my business, and my other areas of life. It just kind of carried over, you know. So, yeah.
There's so much that you just shared that I want to unpack. So many different categories that you went over. And I want to go back to one of the first things that you said is that oftentimes we have these scars from betrayals and trauma. And you had mentioned that it can turn into sepsis and die. And I thought, what a great analogy that is. And I can tell from your experiences as to why you wrote the book that you did. I had no idea that there was fist fights going on in your family. So for many of us, we need to prepare ahead of time. And you mentioned that as to what boundaries are we going to set. And some people do think that boundaries are walls. but they're actually fences.
Mhm.
How we're going to open them up, how far we're going to open them up, who we're going to let in, how long are we going to let them in for. And so I appreciate you mentioning about the fact of having those hard
Mm,
conversations
mm,
ahead of time to let people know what is allowed to be talked about, what is not. And again, who is invited and who is not. And I like the fact also that you mentioned that people can set those boundaries for themselves and say, I'm not coming.
mhm,
We need to allow each person the right to make those types of decisions. And I think for many of us in families, we think we're not allowed to speak up about the limitations that we want to set because it's family. We're just supposed to put up with whatever's going on, those inappropriate conversations. So, thank you so much for pointing that out. So, most of us who, especially for me, I have a very large family, that just wasn't talked about.
mhm.
And you just sweep it underneath the rug and be going home afterwards and getting a Tylenol and a heating pad and resting after the drama. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that you also talk to other people about the fact that you need to prepare ahead of time. And another point that you mentioned is the fact that some of these people are hurting themselves and that's how they hurt others.
Mhm.
And so recognizing that it's not that they're doing it on purpose. Nine
Right.
times out of 10, that's not what it is. And so we're going to run into people who have baggage. And just like ourselves, we have different types of baggage. And so when we come into a family gathering, recognizing and seeing that person for who they are and loving them despite their actions, but still setting up those fences. So thanks for sharing that. So got a chance to read pretty much all of your book, and I want to let people know that it is a very important resource for the holiday season. So tell us again the name of the book.
Mhm. It's called Wellness and Mindset Journey. Um, 31 Days to a Stable Christmas. And it's on my website, We Thrive at Life. All of my books and free resources are on my website. So you can go there and check it out. And if you want to order it, you can, there's an option to have an autographed copy if you wish. So everything's on my website, wethriveatlife.com.
And I'll
Yes.
make sure that I include the link
Mhm.
in the description so you can order the book and have that as you get ready to go into the family gatherings. So I know for you, because of your life experience, not only do you share with individuals about how to deal with the holidays, but you also work with a lot of other people as a coach to talk to them about having boundaries and having a way to heal from some of the trauma that they have experienced. So tell me a little bit about how you got started as being a coach and what is your main focus in doing that?
So I want to mention that, that whole fist fight thing. Um, if you have children that are coming to your holiday things, you need to protect your children because and you don't know if these when or if these outbursts are going to happen. And I know that some families have great holidays, but you know some families don't. And so I think I was like maybe 10 years old when that happened, 9 or 10, something like that. And so I unknowingly carried that for a while. And then through, my spiritual walk, I just kind of forgot it, honestly, until I, started writing that book, where I did have a couple of stressful holidays a few years ago, when, changes were happening with my dad that we weren't aware of and things like that. We had lost my mom, and so when the family dynamic changes, other changes start to, like one of the chapters was where's the soup? And I had I had a brother who was in Italy who passed in 2020, but my other brother was close to us here in the States. And so I have the way that I do Thanksgiving is I cook all the food and I put it because we eat early because of my dad. He had like he would get up really early in the morning, have it, and he had to have his meals, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so we would always like have everything ready by 11:30 or noon so that we could eat. And then we all started we loved that because then, you eat, you watch a movie, you come back, you watch another movie. But there was tables with regular food and sides, and then tables with, desserts and tea, coffee, whatever. And I remember my brother walked in, um and with all of this food already laid out, he's taking off his coat and he's looking at it because it was like a whole open concept. And he goes, "Where's the soup?" And my mom had only passed like a few years before that. And I said, "What do you mean, where's the soup? Look at all this food on the table." And he goes, "But mommy used to make, stracciatella, which means it's like an egg drop soup with, we put tortellini in it." And I was like, "You gotta be kidding me. I just spent all of these hours cooking and you want to know where the soup is?" In my head, I said that. I didn't say it to him. And I'm going to talk about why in a second. But I remembered that. I said, "Hold on a second." I walked into the kitchen and I remembered that a few days before, um, I don't know if it was me or my husband, but like we had a little tummy issue. So I love to have chicken soup when that happens. And so I had frozen some of the stuff or whatever. So I already had the base. I had the tortellini and I had the eggs and everything else to make it. And I put it on there and it was done within like 15 minutes. And that made him happy. But and that brought back my mom into the situation. But one of the things that I've been coaching most of my life since I was 18, and I had my cosmetics business. I'm also a cosmetologist and licensed makeup artist and stuff. So um, I've been coaching for years, and then after 2020, I started fully coaching business people and people that had gone through trauma just because of what there was just a pivot in my life, and it's like, you know, and people kept saying, you should coach." And I'm like, "I am coaching. I'm helping people build teams. I'm helping people, do their own businesses." But it turned into something different. But one of the things that I want to talk about, because it is one of the things that I coach on, is harmony, like bringing harmony to people's lives. So there's basically four um, personality types, if you will, to make it easy. So the first one is going to be your dominant personality, and that's the person that, just kind of takes over. They just have that take charge personality, and they could see far ahead because they're really built to be leaders and managers, and so they're the ones that, can see ahead when things would be better, or they just have like a magic blueprint in their brain sometimes that they could see stuff that the other personalities may not be able to see. So for those people, they could look like really, "I'm not going to let you in." They're like one-liner people where, in one line they could tell you something. My sister's really great at that. Um, and so, but they also have the capability to rein people in when they're going off the rails. Like one time my mom was like really emotional. One of my uncles had just died, and we were doing a three-way phone call, because my sister was close to me and my mom was, away, far away. Um in a different state. So she's like, "I don't know. It's like 8 o'clock at night. Should I call her tonight? It's kind of late. Should I call her in the morning? I don't know what to do, because you think there's like this protocol of, what to do." Um, and my sister said, she's like, "Mom," she goes, "it doesn't really matter if you call her tonight or you call her tomorrow. He's still going to be dead." And so and we both laughed because she was right. And it just kind of, it sounded harsh, but it just kind of, just brought kind of peace to this. And my mom was like, "You know what? You're right. I never looked at it that way." So those type of people. And sometimes if they're in like a high mode of their personality type, it's best to just walk away from the argument because there's not anything, or even if it's just a discussion and they keep trying to prove one point, it's best to just say nothing or say okay and just let it go, because at that moment, there's nothing you can do or say to them that is going to reverse the situation. Love always wins in the end. Do you want to win the argument or do you want to win the war? Because the argument happens right there, but the war goes on for a while, right? And so on the battlefield, different things happen, and sometimes you would just end up coming together and everything, you know, just kind of fits. Then you've got your high I personalities. And these people are woo all over the board and they want everybody to be happy. And they kind of take over the conversation, take over the party, take over the whole thing. And because of their level of it's not anxiety, for the most part, it's just who they are. They're just on a really high level emotionally that saying certain things to them will throw them over the edge because they will feel unaccepted, unloved, what did I do when they're causing the whole situation, kind of thing. And so, love them and just give in to some of the things that, acknowledge what they're saying. They want acknowledgement and they want to know that they matter. And then there's your steady personality where they're watching everybody and they want everybody to be at peace. They don't want anybody to get hurt. They're not going to say anything that's going to hurt anybody, you know? And then you've got your C personality, who's the cautious personality, who's like weighing things out and and just making sure that everything's right for everybody. And did you use one spoonful in here or did you use one cup, because it matters. And so knowing what all of these people want and need is really helpful for you to read the room so you can get the temperature, so you could be hot or cold with them or be the opposite, which is what they might need at the time. So those
As
those
you're talking about the harmony, it reminds me of the verse where it says, um, as much as you can do
Mm,
peaceful in that situation, but we
yes.
can't control the
Mhm.
other individuals in the gathering.
Right.
We can do as much as possible to
Mm,
be at peace with all people. And
yes.
so reading the room, like you mentioned, and I wasn't aware of the descriptions that you had mentioned about the different personalities, but as you are bringing up those examples, I can think of different people in my family that would be one of those personalities. So I completely understand what you're talking about. Now, previously, you were talking about your chapter in your book of making lists,
Mhm.
and you were mentioning about taking care of ourselves. And so, not only just making a list of the menu and the grocery list and um, what events you're going to go to, can you give some advice as to how women can prepare emotionally for family gatherings? And also, you have mentioned several deaths that you have gone through. And that's another aspect of family get-togethers that we need to prepare for, is that's another scar. Remembering these individuals and honoring them. So how can women prepare for that?
Mhm. Um, I keep a list for that too. Because when you are in the throes of something, like for instance, right around this time of year, we had lost track with my brother that was living in Italy, and phones weren't working, meaning we couldn't reach him by phone. Other people didn't really know where he was, um, things like that, right? And so we were going through that right at this time because he had, with the little bit of information that we had, was that he had somehow collapsed, was taken to the hospital, coded on the way to the hospital, so they airlifted him to another hospital in Rome, but nobody knew which one, nobody knew what was happening, nobody knew a thing. He was a single man, and so he didn't have a wife or anybody for us to call. And so it's Thanksgiving, and here we are. And then we ended up getting news on December 2nd that he had passed. And so that holiday season was a little hard. And missing him and what have you. So um I try to make a list of things that to self, to do for myself to take care of myself because when our tank is low, you may be at that point where, as sharp as you are of a thinker, if that's your personality, or as cautious as you are, if that's your personality, we still have these gaps in our minds that sometimes happen when we're under stress. It's almost like the brain just kind of stops for a second, assesses the situation, tries to see what's going on. And it's during those moments that you may not remember that you used to love to take baths, put in a bath bomb or salts or whatever you put in there, or diffuse oils, or listen to music. Having a traumatic brain injury when I was much younger kind of taught me that, to write things down. I mean, I don't write everything down, but just key points that are going to help me remember. And I may not remember to, and having the list, like masking, listening to music, taking a brief walk or a long walk, whatever's better for you. All of these self-care points and things that you could do for yourself, because when you're in that state, it's hard to remember things that you did before that make you happy because you're not happy right now, and so you have to kind of start to create, what can I do for myself that's going to help me through this right now, is what you want to think about. So do you but the point is that you're removing yourself from the situation for a short period of time so that you can fill yourself back up again. Because if you go in empty, especially if you're like the matriarch of the place, the glue that keeps people together. If you keep pulling on that glue, everything's going to fall apart, right? Because the glue's just going to come apart in little pieces. And so being strong enough yourself, and I know this gets used a lot, but putting the max oxygen on first, because you cannot help others if you're not oxygenated yourself, which is a good point because breathing is just awesome when you get in those situations. Walk away, go to the bathroom, and just breathe. Nobody usually bothers you in there if you lock the door, not even your kids, right? So just going to a place where you can breathe and regather and recollect yourself, because just those little tiny things, you know, sometimes I used to put like my little headphones on and play the music so loud that it would knock out all of the noise from out there, but it would also, because our bodies are energy, and it says this in the Bible, so it's not new age. We are light as he is light. And so that energy, in your if it comes from your headphones, it'll stop what's in here, right? Or bring it to that level where there's peace, right? Because sometimes my own thoughts and the own pain in my brain from the TBI kept me from functioning like a normal person, you know? And so having the headphones on and playing the music really loud was very helpful to me, And like I said before, bathing, just doing something and having that list there for yourself. So if you can't think of what to do right now, go to the list and see what you did before. How many minutes do you have? You know how many minutes it takes to mask your face. You know how many minutes it takes to pretty much take a bath, right? So you can kind of go down your list and be like, I don't have time to take a bath, but I can mask my face. Or I don't have time to, but I can put on some music that's going to help me. So however it is that help can come to you through the form of self-care, use that for this time, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. And
Yeah.
one of the things I think we need to remember is to go ahead and feel the feelings. So
Yes.
the pain that is being brought up by past family gatherings, and
Mhm.
again, not every family gathering is negative. We have had beautiful memories, both of us and our families, but feeling the feelings of the positive and the negatives ahead of time. And then when we are overwhelmed, to feel those feelings and recognize this is a time to take care of ourselves. So important. And one of the things that I just thought of as you were sharing about the oxygen mask is the chapter about where's the soup,
Yeah.
and not feeling the pressure of making that soup for that one person. Yes, it was beautiful. It
But,
reminded them
he
of
was
their mom, of your mom.
right, right, and
But
and
if
he
you're not capable emotionally and physically to do
mhm,
that, to to be okay with taking that task off of your list. Do you agree?
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. And looking at them for, was he criticizing my cooking? No.
Mhm.
Was he, saying that, what he was saying was, because I was like, because I'm a D personality. So my first thought was, like I said before, you're kidding me. There's all these things on the table. But I know because I'm his sister that my mom used to make that, and that it was like our appetizer. And soup is great for soothing your emotions and just all of these warm fuzzy feelings that you get. So when I went into the kitchen and I started cooking, I was like, he really misses mom, and that's his way of having mom here. Even though she's not here, her soup is here. um and so just looking at what they're saying, and I turned it into a positive where I saw what had, what can I grab from what I already have to make this soup, right? Um, so if someone comes to the table with a bad memory that they have of that one person, you can turn it around by saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry do you have a positive memory of them? Can you remember of time where they loved you or treated you well, or something funny that they did when you were around that you can't, forget, or something to just turn that negative memory around, because what happens is we're human, right? And sometimes our tendency is to focus on the unfortunately, unless you train yourself as a habit, we tend to focus on the negative instead of the positive. And especially when you've been hurt, that memory of that person, like I was talking about before, can just be like, ouch, ouch, ouch. But you're doing the ouch. You're not, you're just remembering that one thing, and you're not remembering everything. So that person might have hurt you, like my family members that chose to start, fist fighting. Am I going to remember that? Or am I going to remember the time they took me out for ice cream? Am I going to remember the time that they took me to the country and, we had a picnic? Or, what are you going to choose to remember? Because remember, you're human just like everybody else is. You've made mistakes. You've hurt other people. How are you going to turn that around so that the negative, the positive is kind of up here, and eventually the negative starts to go down, go down, go down, because it gets replaced with all of these beautiful things, and it's no longer that bad memory anymore, you know? And honestly, I can tell you that I did not remember that memory until it needed to come up to write something like this. It I forgot about it. I didn't think about it. I didn't, it's not something that stayed with me, all these years, and and now I'm going to get rid of it. And that's the best way to get rid of something like that, or just push it to the side so that's not at the front of your brain. And journaling is great for that. If you have been, you know, mistreated, hurt, betrayed, and it's brutal for you, just take out a journal and write that person a letter, because letting it out, you guys have heard this too, is that, unforgiveness and being bitter towards someone that has hurt you is not hurting them, it's hurting you. And so getting it out and writing a letter, or journaling or writing things down, getting rid of them, talk to your best friend, get it out, because I can guarantee you that that person will love you, they'll listen to you, and may have a different perspective that you missed. And so, just there's ways to deal with things that are healthy to bring because gold gets refined by being put in a hot pot. So put yourself in a hot pot by journaling or really facing that emotion, so that all of that bad stuff can get burned out and thrown away so that things are pure.
And we talk a little bit about rewriting our story. So,
Yes.
not that the trauma didn't happen,
Hmm.
not that these experiences of family members, those experiences didn't happen, but those were just dark chapters in our life. It's not the rest of our story. And so, I like how you pointed out that we can think of the positive memories of that particular person. And so, when we're rewriting the story, to focus on those positive at more than on the negative memory. And one of the other things I wanted to point out, and you had mentioned about your recipes and your grocery list and all of that, but another thing that we need to plan for is what are we going to eat? What are we not going to eat? And that's another form of self-care. So those of you who are getting ready to start the new year with, I mean, I don't really do resolutions, but always I want to live healthier. And I know you are the same way, Anne Marie. And so if you are interested in a simple meal plan that can help you lose weight, beginning January 1st, we're going to do a reset. And so I encourage you to reach out to me now to go ahead and register for that reset. And even before January, to go into the meals and realize you are worth eating healthy. That one piece of chocolate doesn't do anything good for you. I mean, if you want to do it, but just be aware of the consequences of that because we need to take care of ourselves
Mm.
physically, mentally, and spiritually. So, Anne Marie, you have covered so many different things today, and I know that our listeners will be appreciative for your servant heart, and especially to be able to get your book and learn this holiday season how to have a calm holiday. So again, I appreciate you coming on today. I know we could talk even longer than we did, but we will maybe do a part two. But I
Mm.
just wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and a blessed Christmas. And remember that there is hope with God in all situations, and we can restore from our trauma. Anne Marie, thank you again for joining us today.
You, Joy. Thank you.